There is a region not mapped on any conventional atlas, a land that lies between the known and the unknowable. It is a place of shadow and whisper, of legends half told, of haunted hills and secret rivers. It straddles a line between fact and fable, between history and myth. You are about to cross into a space where ghosts linger, legends breathe, and the ordinary becomes extraordinary. This is New England with a difference, here on Things Visible and Invisible. Jeff, the last time we spoke, you were giving us a sort of haunted tour of New England. We had ghosts and we had UFOs. New England is also very famous for lake monsters, a bit like our Loch Ness Monster over here. Tell us about your version of the Loch Ness Monster.
Our most famous lake monster, there are a few, and we've got sea monsters, but the most famous lake monster is Lake Champlain, which is it's the border between Vermont and New York, and in the north it actually goes into Canada. Maybe a third of it is up into Canada, so it's way tucked up there in the north. And it's a massive, massive lake that's named after Samuel de Champlain, who first sailed it in the 1600s. And allegedly, he heard stories from the Native Americans in the area that there was this massive lake monster. They described it as, like a 150-foot snake, wide as a barrel, that would rear its head, and it had a head sort of like a horse without ears. So it would rear its head and then go under. And sightings go back centuries, and they're still occurring to this day. In fact, on the New York side, there's a massive wooden monument to Champ sightings, and there's something like 80 or 90 names. So basically people willing to come forward and say, go ahead, put my name up there. So it's a name, first name, last name, and a date of when they saw Champ. And they're basically going on record. And I spoke to someone who had a camp as a kid. His family had a camp right on the side of the lake on the Vermont side. And he said he was there taking pictures of their camp. He had just run out of film. Sadly, you know where this is going. And he said he saw this look like a horse head sort of rear up and start coming toward the shore. And there was a boat coming. A motorboat was coming sort of in an intercepting path. And he watched this long wake sort of snaking behind this creature. Dad, look. And he said, there was no time to reload the camera. But they're looking, and then all of a sudden the boat gets closer and the animal just submerged and was gone. And they looked at each other and said, that must be Champ. I can't stress how Champ is literally a cottage industry around this lake, especially in the town of Burlington, Vermont, which is the biggest city in Vermont. They have a professional baseball team that is called the Lake Monsters, and their mascot is Champ, right? You can get a little plush toy. I've got one behind me over there. And there's statues in the lake, around the lake of this lake monster. You can buy T-shirts, and I get it. People will cash in. That's how we are. But the sightings still continue. And it's one of those things where you can say, look, and what they're describing, by the way, is not a dinosaur. Like Loch Ness has been accused of being like a leftover dinosaur. They're just saying it is a very, very large serpent, a snake of some kind, that people keep seeing. In the 1970s, it was photographed, and you can see this giant snake head sort of sticking out of the water. The story's powerful enough that when you go to this lake, I dare you not to look. Just like Loch Ness. What are you going to go have a picnic on the shore and just say, like, nope, no lake monsters. I'm not going to look. I'm not going to look at the water. No way. It's impossible. The story is powerful. And when you talk to locals, I mean, I'm not shy at all. I'll be at I'll be getting a sandwich in Burlington, and I'll say, hey, did you ever see Champ? And just like asking about the weather, they'll say, no, I haven't, but my uncle did. And it's just, of course, so many people around there have had these sightings that it's just seems to be understood. There's something out there in those waters that we can't fully explain.
So it's very similar then to Loch Ness, where, as you say, there's a cottage industry of various goods for kids or otherwise, and a lot of people do go to Loch Ness and they have binoculars and they're looking out for. But Loch Ness has been subjected for many years to sort of scientific inquiry, if I can call it that. Has Champ sort of come across the scientists' radar as well?
Yeah, they've done sonar looks, underwater and things like that. They haven't found anything. And again, this is a massive lake. It's the only lakes larger in the United States are the Great Lakes. And so this is a very sizable lake. No, they haven't found anything. And of course, that begs the question. And that's the other thing. The fact that people go out there with sonar, looking in the water, means they believe the stories enough to go through quite a bit of trouble and expense. And of course, that's the Holy Grail. Someone wants to be the one who gets the sonar data, captures it on maybe underwater video, whatever it is, to prove this legend that's been around for centuries now. Sightings that go back, if you look in the newspaper archives from the mid to late 1800s, stories just come up again and again and again. Another sighting of Champ, another sighting of Champ. I've collected so many of these that there's no point in collecting any more. I mean, at what point is the critical mass of the sightings enough? 30, 40, 50? You start to say, well, either everyone's having the same delusion or they're seeing something similar out there they can't explain.
So what, with your research, Jeff, what is your take on it? I mean, what type of creature is in that lake?
So if I could jump to the other side of New England, on the ocean side, in a town called Gloucester, just north of Boston, there was the Gloucester sea serpent. Very similar description. And by the way, you can get from the ocean to Lake Champlain. It's pretty tricky and it's a long route. You'd have to take the St. Lawrence River to Montreal. Then there's another river south. And so there is a waterway that would connect you from the ocean. I mean, it's many, many miles, but you could get there from here. In Gloucester, they had a similar description, 100-foot coiled up serpent. People would put out chairs and have picnics to just watch this thing. Sailors talked about shooting at it with their rifle. And then in the later 1800s and early 1900s, the sightings really slowed down and seemed to stop. And the best guess is that there was a lot more fish in these harbors before it got so populated, before the fishermen just overfished it. And the food source probably moved on. So this giant animal probably moved on to where the food source is. So, I've never seen one for myself, but regular folks are just doing their thing, and they see this thing, they report it, and we still talk about it all these years later.
I'm wondering, though, Jeff, in a way, a bit like Nessie, the day that Nessie is discovered may be of great interest to zoologists, but cryptozoologists and all the rest of us, it'll be the sort of end of something. Do you know what I mean? Is there an element with Champ as well that the mystery is part of the attraction? Like, it's probably best we never actually get to the bottom of what's actually in the lake?
If I give you all the answers, we don't have a legend. That's it, right? If someone pulls an 80-foot snake out of the lake and says, "I think this is Champ," or the species that just a very, very large lake snake, if someone pulls it out, yeah, it's over. Or I don't know. I bet T-shirt sales go up for a while. I mean, I don't know if the baseball team will play any better, but I got to believe the interest would spike, yes. And then it would just be understood. Cryptozoologists always point to the coelacanth, right? This fish, yes, that was thought to be extinct millions of years ago, and suddenly it's caught. Yes. And someone pulls it out and says, "What is this thing?" And someone says, "My gosh, this is the creature we thought was gone, and it's actually still here." Now that's the ocean. And there's so much we don't know about what's in the ocean. I mean, maybe this serpent makes his way through the St. Lawrence River down and then, eats and then goes back to the ocean. We don't know. We don't know. Maybe something more is out there. But yes, you're absolutely right. Part of a legend, the requirement for a legend, is that we don't have all the answers.
Now, we have done the aquatic side of the New England legends. Where do you want to take us next? I mean, my impression of New England, Jeff, I have been to New England many years ago, but is it's quite densely populated. And I say that because I wonder if it really lends itself to unusual beings or entities that could roam around in it. I mean, in the west of the United States, for example, there are great swathes of territory which are uninhabited, but that's not my impression of New England. Is that correct?
No, I don't think that's fair. Where'd you go? Did you go to Boston?
It was more Connecticut, New York, round about there.
Sure. So that's where the people are. That's, if you go further north, for example, I've been to a town in Maine called Unnamed Township 275.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll send you a postcard next time I'm there. There are giant, many thousands of acres of forest in Maine. Everybody in Maine lives basically on the coast, right on the ocean. And then a tiny bit inland, there's a couple of cities, Stephen King, Bangor, Maine. But then the rest of Maine is absolutely wild. Just, you can't get there from here. You'd need a helicopter. So Western Massachusetts has got mountains and many acres of forest and so on. But yes, once you get down to Connecticut and southern parts, you're basically getting to almost suburb of New York City. The closer you get to the city. But up in Maine, it's a different world. And when you've been there and you know Stephen King's stories and writings, you can sort of see how he was molded by where he lives. And their winters are rough. I mean, by October, it's starting to get snowy, and you may not see the ground again until May or April, depending on the winter. I mean, they get some really hard winters.
So,
but they dig in too. The folks in Maine they're great. They're wonderful people. Just it takes a certain amount of grit to live in an environment like that. And there's a little tiny town in northern Maine called Woodstock. And to give you an idea of just how stubborn they are, this was the town that was the site of America's last crank phone call. Now, a lot of us of a certain age remember crank phone calls as you would call someone and say, "Hey, is your refrigerator running?" And they'd say yes, and you'd say, "Well, you better go catch it." And of course, with caller ID and stuff, that whole game is just ruined. You know who's calling before you pick up. In Maine, in the little town of Woodstock, they had a phone system that was literally the old crank phone, where you turn a dial and you get connected to an operator. Anyone can listen on the network, and you say, "Hey, I got to call our neighbor so-and-so." In Woodstock, they had about 45 homes that were on this crank telephone system, which had been around since 1880. 1880 was the earliest crank telephones that everybody used. And then, of course, rotary dial came next. And then in the early 1960s, touchtone started to emerge, and then pretty soon everybody had that. Well, in Woodstock, Maine, they hung in there till 1981 with their crank phone calls. And it was run by a family in their house who eventually said, "We're getting too old for this. We're going to have to just sell out to the telephone company." The town petitioned. Everyone said, "No, we can't get rid of this. It's historic. We have to maintain this wonderfully old, antiquated system." Almost everybody signed it, but at the end of the day, progress waits for no one. Time and tide keep moving, and they lost their phone system. But if you go there today, there's a 14-foot statue of an old crank telephone right in the center of town, with a little plaque that says it was here that we hung in till the end here in Woodstock, the last crank phone call in America.
So it's a land of contrast. You've got great wilderness. You've also got great cities, Boston, New York, etc. Talk to me about some urban legends, maybe, or urban lore. Let's go New York City if we can, Jeff. Talk to me about something there which is strange.
Oh, goodness. New York is technically out of New England, but that's okay. I've been there plenty. Yeah, so urban legends start to turn into things like Bloody Mary. Did you ever play as a child? Do you know the Bloody Mary story with the mirror? No. Oh, goodness. Well, here's your homework. You can try this at home. Bloody Mary is, the backstory of it is that there was a beautiful young woman named Mary Worth who was horribly disfigured in an accident. And so her parents hid all the mirrors in the house because they thought she'd just be so appalled at her own reflection. But one day she gets curious, and when she sees her disfigured reflection, she goes into the realm of the mirror and vows to seek revenge on anyone who ever summons her. And the way you summon her is quite simple. You just turn out the lights, light a candle, get in front of a mirror, and you say Bloody Mary 3 times in the mirror, or 10 times, or 13, whatever you're feeling. But 3 is usually the magic number. And you say Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, and she comes out and attacks you. Do I think there's an entity living in the realm of the mirror? I don't. That's beyond my skepticism, right? I can't get there. However, I receive emails and things like that from teenagers saying we've had sleepover parties and we've tried this and my friend got scratched. And of course, it doesn't make any sense. However, I challenge you, when you're all alone, wherever you live, a flat or a house or whatever, make sure you're alone because I don't want you to be embarrassed. Light a candle. Get in front of the mirror, and say Bloody Mary 3 times. And just before you say it the third time, is there one little teeny tiny piece of you deep in the most base parts of your psyche that just goes, what if? And just be honest with yourself. You don't even have to tell me. You can say nothing happened, or you can say I got a little nervous. And you got nervous because the legend is real, even if the thing behind it can't be proven.
I'm not sure I actually want to meet her, Jeff, so I might pass on that one. So that's New York. Now, you're speaking to us from Boston, an ancient city in American terms, with many, many legends. It's also on the coast. What is, if you like, the preeminent Bostonian lore?
Okay, so Boston is very much a big sports town. And we've got the Boston Red Sox is the baseball team, the professional baseball team in Boston. And their stadium is unique. Fenway Park is unique because it is the smallest in the United States. And the reason for that is there's nowhere to expand. It is right in the heart of downtown. Other cities had the good sense to build new stadiums on the outskirts where there's tons of parking and things like that. But Fenway is historic, and it's got its own legends. In the outfield, there's something called the Green Monster, which has been seen by billions, with a B, of people, because it's a very tall outfield wall that's quite difficult to hit a ball over, whereas in other stadiums it would be a little further back and just 3.5, 4 feet tall, and you can hit a home run. But what would be a home run in another park is not here. And it's one of those things where Wally, it's a wall, so Wally is their mascot. He's a green monster. And it's a story that everybody in baseball knows, right? Other teams come here and they got to face the Green Monster, not just the team, but this giant imposing wall. And I love the personification of a thing that's just out there for all of us to see. And that just is part of our culture. We'll personify it, we'll give it a name, and we'll tell its tale. And that one, of course, is quite real. I mean, you can see a picture, you can watch it every night during the baseball season.
Wow. It seems to be never-ending, the lore of New England. I think you're a very busy individual on this score, Jeff.
Well, is one thing that's important is that there has to be people, right? For a legend to exist, we need people and we need experiences. And when you have the history and the people that sort of compound on each other, strangeness follows. And I love that, right? So the expression I've used is like, these are like croutons in the salad that is New England. These are the little things that stick out, the stories we tell and retell, and then get curious enough that sometimes we go there because we want to become part of the story.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, it's been absolutely great fun traveling around New England in a very different way with you in these conversations. Tell people where they can find out more about you, your work, and also your various podcasts and television series.
Sure, yeah. My website is my name, jeffbelanger.com, and my podcast is called New England Legends. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, and the television series is on Amazon Prime. I know you can watch it in the UK on Prime UK, I love this stuff. I love the discussion of strange things all over the world. It's just, for me, New England is home.
Well, if you ever come to London, I'd love to show you around.
I'd love to come back. I've been there a bunch.
Good. For now, though, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on Things Visible and Invisible.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Things Visible and Invisible. We're dedicated to uncovering phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality, from ancient enigmas and paranormal encounters to scientific anomalies and forgotten histories. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysterious and unexplained, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell to stay updated on future explorations. Have a personal experience or story that aligns with our investigations? We'd love to hear from you. Visit our website at tvi.show and reach out through our contact form. While we can't feature every submission, we review them all, and your story might be featured in an upcoming episode. To support our continued investigations, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter or channel member. Your contributions make these explorations possible and give you access to exclusive content, early releases, and monthly behind-the-scenes discussions with our team. Don't forget to check out our merch store. We've got everything from TVI-branded t-shirts and hoodies to stickers and coffee mugs, perfect for showing your support while keeping the mysteries close. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time as we continue to explore the things visible and invisible.